Yeah, it's like, sure, and everybody just charges it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole industry on their own.
Yeah, my mom's in a retirement village in Hout Bay, and she's got 24-hour care. And she doesn't get out at all. What it costs, and the unit she lives in is paid for, but what it costs monthly just to
Yes.
basically keep her alive, because she's got
Yeah.
Alzheimer's and dementia. She
Yeah.
has for badly for
Yeah.
like almost 15 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same story.
It's
Because if you
quite
go back
frightening.
into you go back into your own house, you got all those costs, you know.
Yeah.
So because a frail care will cost you like 40, and then if you set up in your own house, will cost you 40. But then you still have your rates and taxes, you got your domestic coming in, da, 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 da. So so yeah, it's quite.
Okay, Elmarie, I see everyone's joining the group.
Hello.
Morning,
I'll wait
guys.
for everyone to join. So this is a group we started, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago. I don't even know. And it was really just, the idea was to help. There were a few younger planners who asked me to help them with kind of lifestyle financial planning, as we've always done it. And that's how the group started. And then COVID happened, it stopped, and then it went online. And since then, it's just kind of carried on going, and it's grown. People come and go, which is a good thing.
Yes.
But yeah, what we try and do is we try and discuss things. There's really no rules here, except everyone must contribute and all be kind to each other. And what we try and discuss is anything that is really kind of practical around what we do. And then the real battles that we have, there are a lot of younger or newer to the profession people on the group who are all really willing to learn. And but as we know, starting out in this business is extremely tough. And so yeah, the more we can help each other, that's really what this group is about. I want to give just 2 or 3 more minutes, because I know there was a few more people that said they were joining us. Cindy, you're in Cape Town. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I have to say, today I'm feeling cold.
Yeah, that's what I said. I got a hot water bottle on my lap because I'm also
I've
in
just
Cape
left
Town and it's
home.
cold.
I left mine at home, and now I was driving down thinking, oh, why didn't I put gloves on? Yeah, it's chilly. But I'm well dressed. I'm well dressed. Layers, layers, layers. But otherwise good, thanks, Dirk.
Okay, excellent. Dom, you're also in Cape Town. You're also cold.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with the heater on, layers on. Surviving though, it's not too bad. The rain hasn't arrived yet.
No.
Oh yeah, well,
Coming.
we've actually got the sun out today, which is really good, because I play golf on a Wednesday afternoon. So when you open the curtains and you see clear sky, it's quite a positive thing.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So as you would have noticed, I've asked Elmarie to join us on this group. I kind of known Elmarie for a long time, but we've never really spoken. At a conference a little while ago, we shared dinner, and we had a really good chat. As you know, today we're talking about financial planning specifically for women, be it single women, married women, because we do know, first of all, there are a lot of ladies on this group, but secondly, we know that it is a real challenge out there for various reasons. So Elmarie's been in the business for almost 30 years, Elmarie?
27.
27 or 37?
27.
Yeah.
27.
And obviously Elmarie, she deals with well, I'm going to let you talk, but she deals with a range of clients. She's built a really successful business, but obviously she does deal a lot with ladies as well. So that's why I've asked her just to join us for the start, just to kick us off, for her to, and I've just asked her. I've actually been quite bad at this. I've just said, will you do this? She said yes, and I actually haven't even prompted her. But I know I don't need to, because you're going to kind of just speak from your heart and from real experience. So yeah, I think what we're looking for is there clearly are differences in dealing with, when we deal with a man or a couple or a single woman, and even within where we're dealing with a couple, very often it's the man who kind of takes the lead. So whether that's just traditional or it's how a lot of households run, there's no judgment on it. It's the facts kind of around what we really deal with.
Yeah.
But we know that that's not really a great situation because we want both parties involved. So Elmarie, I'm going to leave it with you and just off you go. Thanks so much.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, so I thought we would start off with is just, yeah, first of all, I kind of got a passion for single women. I think it came from the fact that I was single for quite some time and I got married late in life and I had my children late in life. I still have a 12-year-old in the house, so I'm going to be working for a very long time still. And I've just always been drawn to actually help, not necessarily just single women, but also, you know, educating women and so forth. So I thought this morning, first just have a look and see which are the areas that's different that for men and women when it comes to financial planning, and then we can also delve this a little bit more into single people, single ladies. But I'm sure that a lot of this but I thought I'll just, we can discuss like points along the line as well. I think if we look at the core principles of financial planning, that's exactly the same. Your budgeting, managing risks, planning for retirement, your investing, those overall areas are the same. But where things change and where it's different, I think first of all is that women live longer, has a longer life expectancy. So I actually just Googled to see what is the life expectancy of a more kind of educated man, woman in South Africa. And there is men are between 71 and 74. And I thought, gee, that's young. And then I just thought back of my family. In the last year, we lost 3 males in our family. And it was 63, 69, and 73. Smack bang in that 71 to 74 category. And then the life expectancy of females are between 78 and 80. So there's like a 6 to 7 years difference when it comes to life expectancy. Now, that doesn't sound that much, but if you start looking at when a man retires and how long they need to provide for a female, that can be quite a substantial amount of money. And I think what we also do, I don't know which tools you guys use, but I use the Wealth Integrator. And one thing that I sometimes get myself that I do wrong, which we have to be very cognizant of, you might do a planning for a couple, and then you work, and the husband might have more assets. You put all the husband's assets in them, and the wife might just have a money market or one investment. And what do? You show the planning. Oh, it's lasting until 80. But you have to add maybe 7 or 8 years to that plan, to that graph, because the wife's going to live most probably another 7 or 8 years longer. So I don't know if you experience that. You sometimes do it for a couple, and you kind of go up to whoever's got the most assets. You do the planning kind of like that. So I sometimes catch myself doing that, and I realize no. If the husband's not there anymore, the spouse needs another so many years. So it was just something I was thinking about. So obviously, females' retirement savings need to last longer. They obviously they're at greater risk at outliving their retirement capital. And then I was just saying, as from a planning point of view, we just have to be very aware of that when you do couple planning, to actually take the longevity of the spouse, of the female into account. So longer life expectancy, I think, is really, really crucial. Don't know if anybody's got feedback to give on that point. Nobody. Okay, cool. Then I thought the second area that's different for women, if there's going to be a career interruption, it's going to be 99%, most probably the female, when it comes to during your lifetime. I mean, I know maybe 1 or 2 men that stopped working because the females were maybe in higher positions when they had children, but it's most probably going to be the female. And I think what happens in that case, from a financial planning point of view, is the assets keeps building up in the husband's name. I don't know if you guys often see that the wife's at home and the husband's earning and is actually keeping building up at his name, which is actually also long-term not that wise, because if you think of estate planning, You know, the husband sits within with a larger estate, or even from a retirement planning point of view, if you have one of those two people has got the more retirement annuities, the more pension funds and more assets in their name, what happens at retirement? That person gets taxed at much higher tax brackets. Instead of starting to split those assets during their lifetimes, you know, into both people's names, you know, so that's also one thing. I only thought about that now, actually, that is it's such a great planning tool from a tax point of view. You had to go and do calculations of when one person has all the assets in their name and what they'll get out after tax, especially if it's retirement funding, versus if it was split, you know, how much more money they'll have. It's a big difference. And also, obviously, if you're building up more discretionary funds, so it can make a huge difference in their planning. So to come back to career interruptions, I think even if the spouse gets interrupted in the career, the one that, you know, the female is working, not working, you must still actually have those discussions with clients to say, you know what, although you're not working, not earning income, you are in this together, and let's start dividing the assets, start donating to your spouse so you can actually get those assets equally split. Now, I know that there's you know, when you talk to people like that, some people are keen to do it. And I think some people hold on and say, wait a minute, I'm earning all this money. I kind of want to have it in my name. But then you'll obviously can go back and see how are they married. You know, if you're married in community property, well, it's 50-50 anyway. If you got married with accrual from a young age, it's going to be the same effect. Very different, obviously, if it's now out of community property. But I think that's an area that a person from early on can actually start helping clients to plan their tax affairs for later on, especially if there is a very big difference between earning potential. And then, of course, if you have career interruptions and the woman is stopped contributing, then, of course, she has few years to contribute to her retirement. And another reason why, you know, the husband should actually start putting some of those funds into her name. So that's from a career interruption point of view. I thought that's very real. I mean, we see that all the time, and how to manage that. Then income differences. We want to believe that, you know, females, especially if you look at the younger females, you know, they earning the same. But if you look at older, I mean, I still see a lot of men earning more than women. And that definitely has changed over the years. But you still have that. And so ultimately the male builds up more retirement funds than the female, you know, if they have pension funds, etc. That is definitely changing, but then the wife will have less money in her, you know, in her name, which is fine if she inherits everything, you know, at the end of the day. Yeah, so I don't know if any of you see that. Do you still see that there's a big discrepancy between male and female income?
Yeah, I see it. Well, we're in a similar age group, I suppose. So I do see it a lot, and I do see it a lot where you know, the female has given up a career to look after the kids, and what's happening even now is there's now grandkids, because people are living much healthier, much longer, and some of our generation had kids young, which means there's a good chance they're young grandparents, as I'm 58. I've got 3 grandkids. It's a blessing, but it does change perspective. So then a lot of people want to stop work earlier as well, because then they start helping their kids out with the grandkids.
Yes.
Which is another story. It can be good or bad. So that bit of a double jeopardy. But so yeah, I see that a lot.
Yeah, and also a female is a carer, hey? If there's caring to be done, who's going to do it? Caring to the children, caring to our older siblings, older parents. I mean, if I ever look now, with my mom has gone through her health issues now, who jumped in first? We two sisters and we a brother. Who jumped in first? You know, it's the females, you know, who took leave, who took time off. So always the more nurturing person. And then a very interesting area that I find extremely interesting is investment behavior. So men tend to take more risk than females. Okay. But in saying that, men are more likely to switch their investments. And females, although they're more conservative, they are much less likely to switch out of funds. So although they're less conservative, they might even have a better outcome than men that is switching more frequently. And there's actually lots of studies done on that. It's very, very interesting. So if you could get your female clients who need higher growth to go higher, to take more risk, and also then not do a lot of the switching, trying to chase yesterday's winners, they'll even have a better outcome. Because let's face it, how many older clients do you see who has all this money squirreled in this money market funds, and they like so reluctant to take risks because they think that their money in their money market fund is not a lot of risk. And it's our job to educate those people from when they start doing their planning and show them the impact of, if they take their money market and they put it in a balance fund, like the outperformance and over time what they can get. So I think that is a very interesting the investment behavior. Women are more disciplined. They're also more disciplined savers because I think they're always more worried about, the future. Yeah, so I don't know.
Elmarie, on that, do you think maybe it's because in a lot of cases, I would say when a couple deals with a financial planner, I think in more instances the male takes the lead than the female. I think I'm kind of correct in that, although they can both participate. But it's where the industry's always gone, and it's kind of, as you said, women are the carer, looking after the kids, and a lot of them, especially our generation, aren't working or didn't have high careers like a lot of the younger couples today have, younger ladies today have. That maybe it's the men that are interacting with an advisor, and this is just an angle because I've looked into this as well, and I've got some stuff on this, that if they're dealing with an advisor who kind of doesn't get it like we do on the lifestyle financial planning side, and they see themselves as fund managers, it's often the advisors that is leading this thing about chasing, the last year's kind of winner. So it's almost like, I don't know, I'm kind of implying that maybe because the relationship with women, yes, and it's kind of an ego thing, and the male advisor will say to the advisor, I was at a Brian, my mates with Coronation, and they did this, and the advisor doesn't want to lose the business, and he says, or he comes and says, oh, look at this new fund, this hedge fund, or whatever it is. And I mean, I think a lot of that ego can play a big role in it as well.
Yeah. And I think it's very important when you do planning that you do joint planning. It's very important that to have both parties involved. And sometimes you struggle to do that. I mean, the male or female who's the dominant person when it comes to the finance, it will say, he's not interested. I do all of this and he's not interested. But then you kind of have to say to them, yes, he might not be interested, but what if you're not there tomorrow? I mean, does he know? Is the trust financials up to date? I had a client now, her financials, she's the one who looks after everything. They haven't done financials in their trust for 14 years. I said to her, if you die tomorrow, you want your assets to go into this. This is a mess. It's a complete mess. You're leaving him with who knows nothing about things with a mess, So that's the one point where it's messy. But say where everything is set up correctly, and that I'm assuming now the female's now the one that's taking charge here. He needs to know, or she needs to know. They need to know, like, how everything works, where everything is. That's the other thing. People don't even know where their stuff is. They don't have like the box or the file with everything in. They might be very organized and they might know everything, but their spouse knows nothing. So you're actually doing that person a disadvantage, by doing that. And I suppose that's where it comes in about learning people's personalities, learning your spouse, finding out how does that dynamic in that household work. And then sometimes you'll find, if you're kind of insistent on that, sometimes you find that spouse comes to you later on and say, I so want to thank you for that. I've always actually wanted to know, but that person is just always say to me, don't worry. And then this person said, but I do worry. So it's also the different personalities you have in the household, I mean, I speak for myself. My husband has got no interest at all. And then so you just carry on but all that stuff must be documented. Everything must be in a place where people can find it. So yeah, I think it's very important to, when you look at these things, to look at personalities and obviously manage that as well.
I mean, I want to ask on kind of on that side, on kind of the human side. So I'm sure you've dealt with cases where what made me think of it, we've got a new couple we brought on board now. And when we asked for a budget, we got two budgets. We got hers and we got his.
Yes.
Now, we got to know them fairly well. They do everything together. But I think it's like old habits die hard, is that like it was one him and her. Then they kind of got together, but they've still kind of, and I think a lot of households run like that, where he pays these expenses, she pays those expenses.
Yes.
And there's absolutely no harm meant in it, but it's not ideal to work with a couple like that, because it's often he thinks she's doing something, she thinks he's doing something, and often there's a complete mess there because no one's doing enough. I wanted to ask you, how do you deal with it where you're dealing with a couple where the female comes in and she's kind of really being left out, not necessarily in a negative way, just he's always run with it, she's not inclined that way, but now you need to get her involved because you want them planning together, but also perhaps he's a bit older or his health is not great, and that down the line you're going to have her educated. And again, I mean that in the best way, because it's like we deal with this every day. We get clients who are they're accountants, the lawyers, they don't know what we know because they don't deal with it every day. But she comes in and now you kind of need to educate her around these financial instruments and products and how it all means in the plan. I mean, how have you dealt with that in the past? Have you got any stories around that?
Yeah, so I've actually sometimes been quite hard, like in the sense of, say I've like presented a wealth integrator and I presented and we spoke about, like, say what, say the husband dies, the main breadwinner, and then he will say, oh, but my wife can just sell the house. And then I'll say, oh, but sorry, you're dead now. You must keep quiet. And then I'll go, wife, are you going to sell the house when your husband dies? And then he'll chirp in. I'll say, no, you are not here anymore. Obviously in a nice way. And she'll say, I'll never sell my house. All my memories are there. My kids, my grandchildren come there. I will never sell the house. I said, well, then we do have a problem now, because now we don't have that money. So I said, yeah, she's not going to sell the house. You're not going to be there to tell her to sell the house. She's not going to sell the house. So now she's going to live a different life, because now there's going to maybe be enough money for this, and this. How can we change that? This is really important to her. And then you'll have some husbands that still chip in and still say, no, but she's going to have to sell the house. So I suppose sometimes you kind of just have to go, it's not your decision. It's not going to be your decision. It's going to be her decision, or vice versa. Because the one person will say, or sometimes she has said, oh, when I was a student, I had to take a student loan. And then the wife said, but my parents paid for my education. I started off with no loans. I want that for my children. And you get those, because my dad, this is me, my dad, because I mean, we're all like that, I mean, I had a friend the other day said, oh no, my daughter must take a loan. So I said, oh, did your dad take a loan for you? Now there's enough money. So he says, yes. So I said, okay, so does it have to be the same? Can it not maybe be a combination? Can you maybe not fund half of it and she takes a loan for half of that? I know you want a teacher to pay things back, but do you want to just start off when, what if she doesn't find a job? Now she sits with this big loan. Maybe you can structure it differently. Maybe it's not through the bank. Maybe it should be with you, so she doesn't have this anxiety that she's got this hundreds and thousands of rands that she has to pay back. So I suppose it's like, you have to go back to that human element and say, what is causing this? Why is this person so adamant that their child must take a loan? Or why is the husband so adamant the house must be sold? Does he now think she doesn't need such a big house, or she's going to share it? She's scared she's going to get married and share it with another man? Or then the whole human kind of discussion. Then you kind of have to open the floor again a little bit and say, why do you feel like that? Why do you feel that you need to sell the house? They say, but there's not enough money. I said, okay, could there be enough money? You know, what if we top up this life cover? You know, and that will change the whole scenario. Isn't that an option? I suppose, you know, like just that open questions to start understanding that couple. Because in the end of the day, if you take on a couple as your client, you kind of want to be with them now for the next 30 years or whatever it is, or 40 years. So you can as well start having those conversations. Because otherwise you're never going to get to what it actually is all about and what's important to both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you said about being a bit hard. What we've been doing is we obviously have a budget. You know, we also work the IWP,
Yes.
and then we do risk completely separately. And when we do that, we have the budget, but we have, if he's dead, if he's maimed, if she's dead, if she's maimed.
Yes, I also do
we
like
try and make light of it. But then you sit there, and when you look at those household expenses, for instance, there's a lot that's not going to change. You know, the domestic care, you know, might even need more. I mean, electricity is not going to change. Groceries will change, but not significantly. You know, if you're making a salad for 3 people or 4 people,
Yeah.
you're not going to shop any differently. You know, there's a couple of chops left over on the brine, we'll have them tomorrow morning. But there's a lot of things that aren't going to change. So I find it, and I like what you do is where you actually say to the guy, like, actually, no, you're dead. So
You can't speak. You don't
go some coffee and sit with that, because the reality of what we do is that doesn't happen often. But when it happens, you sit there and you have to look that person in the eye. And if your planning isn't correct, a lot of people don't think of the outcome, the consequences. You have to look that person in the eye and say, well, you know, if we had R1 million more cover, for instance, I mean, we're not trying to sell insurance here, but if we had R1 million more cover, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. Okay, because you're quite right. I mean, our advice to most people is when someone passes, you don't make any big moves for at least 12 months.
No, yeah.
Unless
no,
you really have to. You don't sell the house. You don't, unless you were going to sell the house or you want to do, but you don't sell the house. You kind of, you stay, and I think especially with women as well, is because they are homemakers. It's not that we don't care, but women are really the homemakers. You know, if I look at which photos are up in our house, I've had very little say in that. You know, it's Linda makes those calls, art on the walls, whatever. And we happy. We that's how it goes. You know, I'll decide what we're going to have in the brunch tonight, kind of thing. The important stuff. But
yeah. So sorry.
No, Karen.
So what I also always do, I always tell people that I would rather spend money on building wealth than spending it on risk. Okay. But you do those checks and you make sure those things are in place, because none of us know when it's going to change tomorrow. So you do that exercise really well in the beginning, you know, that budgets of what they need, whatever. And of course, as the kids get older and things change, you can start reducing some of that stuff if need be, you know, but you kind of do that really, really well when you take your client on and you tick those boxes and you structure it that everybody is happy with both sides with what you've done. Because if something happens, boy, I mean, we all know to have stress, financial stress, one of those things, I mean, that is just horrendous. And I always tell people the story, you know, my father died at a very young age. Well, young, kind of what we now, 56. And my mom stopped working when my sister was born. Okay, so my sister was then 30. So my mom has not worked since she was 20 years old. Okay. If it wasn't for the fact my dad had life cover, my mother would have been at the age of 56 destitute. So my dad had a pension fund, but not a big pension. The pension fund work wasn't so great, but he had life cover. And that made all the difference in the world. I mean, my mom is now 80. She's lived off that money we invested smartly, high risk shares, stuff like that. She's lived off that money, and it wasn't huge amounts of money. And now she has to go into a frail care scenario, and there's still enough money. It's like it's 30 years later, you know. So, and that again just always shows me in my own personal life how important it is just to get those things in place, and then not to be conservative with your funds, not to go and sort of put it in a money market or in a something, like, you know, that kind of scenario. So but you just have to bring it across in a way of, I don't know, nobody likes spending money on disability and life cover. I mean, you don't, because you don't see anything for it. You rather invest it. And I suppose if you just really be honest about how you feel about that, it is not about selling a policy. It's about making sure when things really go wrong that there isn't all that pressure, and you kind of do it once well. And then as things change, you can always reduce it at a later stage if you don't need it. I mean, obviously now you want to build your wealth up, and as your wealth builds, then you can start reducing your cover. Hey, when you start self-insuring yourself, because later on you'll have created some wealth, and then you may only need cover maybe for estate taxes, because now the kids are finished, then you don't need that anymore. So I think it's just a way you position it. And then I found I never have a problem with that. I never have a problem with people then doing putting in place what needs to be put in place, because at the end of the day they must decide what they're going to put in place. And if you've done your job properly, and then they see what you see, and obviously we also have all the experience, and don't oversell people on that. That can go into investments and start building up that self-insurance, those assets.
Elmarie, tell me, how do you have the discussion? Because as you said, women are naturally more conservative. And are we quite careful about how we, like the industry uses a term, like you use like high risk. We kind of say high return.
Yeah.
I know you know it, but anyway,
Yeah.
but how do you, when you sit with someone and like in your mom, like I can imagine when someone passes away at 56, you're a widow with young kids, your natural thought must be protection, conservative, guarantees, all of that. How do you work with women who that if they simply go from, let's call it inflation +2 to inflation +6 target, that over the next 35 years it's going to give them a completely different life? How do you go about kind of educating them and convincing them that taking on more risk as they see it is best for them, versus kind of leaving the money in the bank or in a guarantee type of fund?
I think there's two aspects. What I do. The one, yes, you can demonstrate very nicely in the IWP when you change you change the growth rates, but we also know that we don't necessarily always get those growth rates. But yeah, so that's a whole nother discussion. So what I do is I do always kind of look at your short-term needs, your medium-term needs, and your long-term needs. Okay. And I would not just go and say to the person, okay, even specifics, they're very conservative, we're not going to put all in high risk and try and get them to go there. I would still go and say, right, you are nervous about taking higher risk to have a higher return. And I always show them on a fund fact sheet, if we look at funds, how much they can lose. I always show clients that. Because when the fund does well, there's no hassles. But if a client can understand what they could lose in a given time, and then you show them usually what a short time period you have to re-rate. I mean, if you just show people what happened in COVID, how quickly that re-rated, what happened now, you kind of show people that. And then you say to them, right, how would you feel if we do take that more high? This is for a 20-year term, but in that 20-year term, you can see these blips. You can see that it's happened. You show them the graphs, and you show them what that, so they can kind of be comfortable with that. And then you kind of show them, okay, your shorter term, we can still do money market if you feel safe. We can still do that fixed deposit that you want. So I wouldn't just go the one route, not with a person like that. And then what you find is, once that client has gone through one crisis, once they've gone through one of those where their money has lost 20% and they've left it, and you've convinced them to just sit this through, and they've re-rated, the next time it happens, they're still stressed, but they're less stressed. And as the years go by, later on, it will not be a problem for them anymore. But if you had to put all their money there, and they have that huge downturn for the first time, that person will be so stressed out, they will take their money away from you. And they will probably disinvest. And then you haven't achieved anything. So for me, again, it is, even if you know it would be better to put a bigger amount of money there, you don't do that, because you need to understand where that person's coming from. Why are they so nervous? What is it that they don't want to take risks? So it's so it's always more than one thing. It's more, again, what their fears are, what is their relationship with money, and and kind of the outcome that you want to see for them. So it is a whole education thing, and doing it in a little bit, like over the years. I mean, I've got clients now that wanted everything in money market 20 years ago. Now they're like, look at the investments, how well they've done, over time, and now they're just comfortable. They don't even worry about those things anymore. And they see their plan works. And that's why I love the IWP. When clients are unsure about something, I had a client yesterday. She said, you know what? I really want to, she's a single lady. She's never been married, and she has to look after herself. But she wants life to go on 2 really nice holidays. The one with her sister and her sister husband. But they don't have as much money as she has, but she also don't want to just splash out. So I said to him, come, let's run the IWP. Come, let's put in figures. What do you want to spend on this holiday? Is it 100,000, 150, is it 200? Let's see what you can do. Our graphs runs to 98 now. I said, it doesn't even move. It moves like a little bit. So I'm going to do this for her now. I saw her yesterday, and I said to her, and then Louisa, go and have those holidays, because she can't go on holiday on her own. She needs a holiday. She needs to go with because she's single. So that's her thing. Like, she would love to go on these holidays, but she can't go on her own. So, and then you just whip it into the IWP. And I said to her, let's take a higher income as well. Let's up your income. You're earning 30 now, but we know frail care is this 40. Let's put a 40 in there now. Let's see what your graph looks like if you have to go into a frail care later on in your life. I think I'm so flippant over frail care now because I've just done this for my mother. So, and she's turning 70 now. So I said, come, let's make your income 40. And let's take 100,000. Let's start with 100,000 for your holiday. Let's see what it looks like. And then, then she's going to be, and then we can go, I know we invested you inflation plus 3 to 5, but let's trim back the growth. So we say we're not going to have so much growth. Let's say we have a couple of bad years. What does now look like? It still looks good. Or no, maybe 40 is not going to work if we don't get such good growth. But that's what it's just always nice to re-look at the scenarios. So I always try and look at the scenarios from a very conservative. What if we don't get the growth we need? What if you have to spend 5 years or 10 years in frail care? What does your graph look like then? Have we thought about this? Have we actually thought about everything? And that's just how I look at it.
I think you make a really valid point there. There's 2 things I really like. The one is that even though we know what is best, we have to take the clients into account, their feelings around whatever. So if someone has been more conservative. So the way I look at it is, well, if your retirement funds have to be Reg 28, so that's fine. And by nature it's long term. So stick it. So we'll often use kind of an idea of a kind of a bucketing strategy. So let's think about, here's if the person's say 45, let's look at the next 5 years. Yeah, we've got income, or you've got money here that let's make sure that if you need anything, it's available. But let's talk about the 65-year-old Dirk as well, and what are they going to need? And if we know we're not going to touch this money until then, let's go for higher growth on that too. But the bucketing system, I think a lot of whatever system you use, I think a lot of it is psychological, and it's important to understand how are you, Andy from HeatRap always says, Andy Hart, he says the best plan is the plan that the client's going to stick to. The best fund is the client that's going to stay invested in. And I think that's really, really important. So if you work out what strategy you can sell well to your clients for their benefit, that you can create a story around. I think that's really important. And then the other thing I really like is you keep coming back to, and I mean, you call it the IWP, which is what it is, but it comes back to the plan. It is so important. I don't know, people who don't use cash flow planning are really,
I don't know.
I don't think they can do the proper job. I'm just going to say that, because I don't think I mean, Eddie's in the room. Eddie's an actuary. I know he's really smart. But I mean, if you don't have a tool that you can use that says, well, hang on, what does this look like? Especially when you're loading future holidays and needs and dreams in that. But I absolutely love what you say, that you go back to the IWP, and because it's graphic, people really like it. I also find that women are far more comforted. We've had it where she says, I just need to come in and I need to see that graph. And you put in a few things, they see the graph, it goes to 102, and they're, okay, I'm done, I can get out of here. You guys can carry on talking about the other stuff.
And I sometimes do a review, and then I thought, they don't need to update it graph right now. We done one last year, and everything was fine. And then I'll get a little email, Elmarie, where's my graph? I'll go, okay, quickly do that graph. So yeah, and I think, and I always say to myself, say sometimes you're not sure if you're doing the right thing for a client. Are you doing the right thing? Then I always bring it back, and I bring it back to like a personal area. I go, if this is my brother sitting in front of me, what would I do right now if this person was my brother? Or this person was my mother, or this person was my sister, or my younger daughter, or whatever. And I think, and then sometimes I think, oh no, that would have been, I would have thought like this, or maybe I would have thought like that. So I always do that to myself as well, and I think if you come from that kind of point as well, and you're giving advice, and if you somewhere made a mistake, you've come from the right place. Because I mean, we also, you have also sometimes maybe done something you thought, sure, I shouldn't have actually done that. Would have been better if I put them in an endowment structure 20 years ago, because now they got so much wealth and now they're paying more tax or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, those things also happen. That's like always like my little double check,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me, Elmarie, I don't know if you deal with, and I want to ask maybe Dom and Diane to come in here as well, because they're ladies and they are younger than us. Do you see a difference, and girls, please chip in, do you see a difference in this kind of behavior around, say, young investors, say from late 20s to like mid 30s? Do you see a difference in their attitude to people more in our generation? Do you actually see that with regards either how they invest, if they do or they don't? And obviously a lot of this is personal to the individual, but do you kind of see a bit of a trend at all?
I think there's a difference. But I must say, my young people that I'm dealing with now is mainly through clients' children. And I would say that most of them are all educated. They all have been through university. And they are very different. I think they're very, very different. I think they're way more informed. I see if before I've met them or seen them, they've gone to research what's a retirement annuity, what's a unit trust, so they come in there with a lot more knowledge already. They might sometimes interpret things incorrectly. They might think they know exactly how everything works, but still they have gone to look at, and I mean, if you tell something like maybe something, they might still go and look further, and now of course they might ask AI. I mean, I had a client the other day who asked me a question about why her fund hasn't done so well. So I said, well, the market's dropped because of the war and blah 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 blah. And she goes, oh, that's exactly what AI told me. So I go, oh, thank goodness, because it seems like AI is being much smarter than what we are. And then AI still told her, but you should check it with your financial advisor. So, like, she's an older client, but anyway, so I think there's so many more dynamics that come in play with the younger people. But in saying that, because I've got doctors now that's young, got engineers that's young, they're also very, very busy. So they do some research, but I haven't found that they kind of wanted to do everything themselves. So they still wanted that input. But yes, I think there's a huge shift coming when it comes to females and younger people and of course they also would much easier go online and quickly just do an investment, buy some crypto or invest in another investment. I mean, they would do that like that, where the older generation still wouldn't necessarily maybe want to go straight onto the internet because they won't trust it, think it's not safe. So I think there's a huge difference.
Diane, Dom, can you guys contribute at all?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a generational, and I think it links to what we were speaking about earlier with, how a lot of the older generation, there is a bit more of the spouse, the female not necessarily being part of the planning process, or the male took on a lot of those roles. And I think now what I'm also seeing a lot more of is the younger females. They're not necessarily saying they don't want their partner to do that, but they maybe earn their own money and they kind of want to plan together, but they do their own things. So there is, they as you say, Elmarie, they go on, they do investments, they do research themselves, but I think a lot of people still have that, well, I'm fortunate to have that, where they still want the financial planner to have that role. They don't want to run that job as well. They do, yes, there's info and everything out there, but they want someone else to be looking after that, which isn't always the case. So there's a lot of generational side of things, definitely still, but I mean, I find that there are the females that they do like doing things themselves. They do like keeping a handle on things, which I think is a good thing.
I must say, I'm loving my young clients because they're just so different, and I do things different. And I mean, it's like the other day, he's like 22 now, but he's earning quite well. He's already earning like nearly 50,000 a month. So like a WhatsApp, hey, Elmarie, I want to up my RA, I want to up my unit trust, I want to do my tax-free savings, quick WhatsApp, quickly send me all the documents. That's it. you know what I mean? Where would a 60-year-old have done that? No.
Yeah, it is a lot more quick exchange.
Yes.
They're on it. They want to move. They want things like
sorted.
They want it done now. Yeah.
I think times have also changed, Dirk, because the old days you were set on getting married, having a family. And I think now the generation from the 20 to 30-year-olds, they try to set up their businesses first, career-driven, even women. They get children later. So the planning starts from the beginning instead, where it is reversed now on the elderly base, basically, I would say. So they educate themselves, like Elmarie and Dom also says. From the start, they get into that habit of creating that good stuff, of being educated and also being, how can I say, stuck to the plan on, okay, I have a career-driven goal, but also the goals throughout my life. And even with family, then everything that adds on to life becomes easier because it's already, the structure is already in place. Definitely. So, and it's secured. And they can, like I say, I think that comes from a woman's perspective of being then calm and more, how can I say, complete in that way, of not being, like Elmarie said, invested in the money market, taking a bit more risks and then seeing, and you can adapt. That's the thing. I think in the old ages, we were so stuck to one plan and not changing. And now the world is evolving so much and you just need to adapt your plan as you continue, as life changes.
Great, thanks, Diane. Cindy, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there wondering, and I'm agreeing with everything, but I mean, my young people have got an insight into planning. I call it financial planning 101, and I give them a broad overview, which I think the older clients that I took over from an older advisor didn't get that. It was, give me your money, let me invest, you need this insurance, I'll see you in a year. So I think this room is probably going to give quite a different answer versus having some other advisors in the room who don't do cash flow planning, who don't use IWP, who don't do the coaching, etc. So I think we'd get quite a different answer, because I've got clients that as soon, the young guys and the girls, as soon as they get a salary increase, they literally send me a message. I need to increase my ROI by X. I want to put that amount offshore and I want my tax, all of that kind of stuff. So I think it's the way that we mentor, for want of a better word, right from the start. It's more about them. It's not about us. I've also got something else that I wanted to say around women. If I can still have the floor. So what I've noticed with the older women, I've got 2 case studies, call it. The one lady, whenever I saw her, she was like, I don't want to deal with money. Please just speak to David. But guess what? David died. But we forged a very good relationship, her and I would explain things, but I didn't push. David died. She's got me relationships intact, and she's actually handling her money so well that it's difficult for me to see that she's the same person. So I think the key is when you've got these older people, build the relationship with the women, because the guys 99 going to do it first. The other one was also a situation, and he nearly commanded the room, and I don't tolerate that. I'm also cheeky and I'm strong, and I'm like, and I kind of tentatively went there, and he shut it down, and he got irritated with her. I might have told you the story before in this forum, but what I did was I carefully called her a little while later and said, this is what I'm noticing. And so the relationship was building outside of him. And then he literally died. I mean, he wasn't supposed to die. He died in a car accident. But we had built relationship. She knew that I cared. She knew that I could interrogate him because he was very technical. So she trusts me. And so the journey continues. It's only been 1.5 years since he's died, but I haven't lost her. And then final point is I'm, for want of a better word, passionate about empowering women, because a lot of times, I mean, my own uncle, whose business I bought, his wife had to account for every single cent. And she did not even know, she's only 9 years older than me. He was much older. She didn't even know how to use a bank account because he was the financial guy in the room. And so I think empowering and education and doing it in a soft, gentle way is really important for women.
Yeah, thanks for that, Cindy. I think we can all agree with you. Great. Thanks so much, girls. I really appreciate
I agree with that. That you have to build the relationship with the other person who's not the person you always, because sometimes the people just arrive there on their own, often you say, well, we need to, the other person needs to be here as well, so you kind of also have to insist that the other person's there, even though they're not interested. But yeah, and then you have to build that relationship, because if the main person dies, that other person might not feel comfortable with you because they feel like they've been excluded. You've also excluded them, not just the husband. You've also excluded them. So you need to have to make it be very aware of that. That's a very, very good point.
Yeah, I think that's an unintended consequence. We can be doing that, and unbeknown to us, the other part of this couple is feeling neglected or not cared for. I think in my 30-odd years that certainly happened. So, and I think what's coming through, Cindy, as well, and Elmarie is, and all the ladies, but is really the human side of what we do. Because a lot of this is scary, like you're saying. So the new clients coming through, they educate themselves, they use AI, which isn't always right, but a lot of it is pretty decent. I mean, we've all looked at it. So we can be thinking like, geez, how do I add value? And our knowledge and our experience is important, but as a young advisor, you don't maybe have as many years of experience. You can have brilliant knowledge. You can come first in the class, but you're going to get all that stuff off the internet in any case. So maybe the way it's interpreted, it can be different, but the gist of it is basically going to be there. And I think this is highlighting that where we really add value is use words like care, Cindy, like she knows I care about her. And again, especially for the young advisors and the young guys especially, you've got to prepare yourself for meetings, I believe, so that when you go in, you know who that person is or who that couple is. You've got to be able to be present, and they've got to feel that you care. If you do that, that's going to add a lot more value than just going in and being I know absolutely everything, because they're going to be able to get that elsewhere as well. But our biggest job to gain and then retain clients ongoing is to keep showing them that we care. And we can never take for granted that just because we've had a relationship with a client for 10 or 15 years, that they know. It's like your relationships you have at home. You've got to keep on showing that you care, and that takes effort. So that is a little warning light.
Yeah.
Shannon,
We've
you
got
got
a
your
hand up.
Sorry, Elmarie, you carry on, then Shannon after you.
No, I just wanted to say Shannon's got his hand up. So.
Guys, the one thing that to me, what we've been talking about, we're missing one of the big elephants in the room, and it's one of the hardest things to discuss. I mean, it's hard to discuss with clients planning for death. But the one thing that I'm seeing where there's a big weakness in terms of the side of financial planning for women, and that is on divorce. And I think it's so important to have these discussions. I come across so many divorcees that have not a cooking clue about anything about financial planning. They've gotten divorces. They've spoken to an attorney. Attorneys know nothing about financial planning. They think they're stepping into something that they have a hell of a lot more than they actually have. And, you know, I think there's a huge opportunity for financial planners talking about pre-divorce financial planning. And I think it might stop a lot of divorces because, you know, I think sometimes women throw in the towel too quickly and sorry, I'm generalizing and I'm saying women, but I think it's, you know, people think, you know, the grass is going to be green on the other side. I've got this huge lump sum, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? It's not what you think it is. And so I see it an opportunity for financial planners. It's a horrible subject to have to discuss. But again, when I sit down with clients, we're not planning to fail. Let's not fail to plan. And let's have that plan while we're rational and calm and we can talk, as opposed to a point in time where nobody wants to talk. And now we're still going to go through this process. So I think, to me, it's a topic that needs to be discussed more and more with women, and especially with partners that are not working. Because quite often, again, late on his career, he's got lots of money and all that, and the youngster comes in and entices him away and she gets left. So, you know, it's something that to me is very, very, very important and gets missed.
Yeah, I think a little thing like marital regimes, you know, when everyone's in love and they're getting married, and especially if the one is from a wealthier family than the other, it's often something that, like, we don't really want to talk about it because this isn't about money, but the reality is it is. And if there needs to be a prenup, then at least know up front that there's a prenup, because as you say, Shannon, that's then going to affect how you should be doing your planning. Otherwise, one of the parties could be left destitute. And I mean, I've seen many times in divorce, and I hear what you're saying. You're not saying women throwing the towel in the relationship. Is very often they're the one fighting for what they deserve. Okay, you're right. The attorneys, lots of egos, even if it's a female attorney, and the male's trying to protect his life, which is the money basically. And very often women will throw in the towel earlier in the divorce settlement and accept less than they should, simply because they want to move forward. Okay. So, I mean, I do see that a lot. And then also, I mean, I've been called a few times as expert witness and that, and it really is the best thing to do in a situation is to, again, use a tool like the RWP and say, okay, if you're divorced, if this is what you get, here's your plan moving forward versus his. And okay, well, actually, you're going to be screwed. Because the little things like who is paying for the medical aid and who is paying for the kids and all of that. And very often that gets left because if the guy goes on and meets somebody else, they may or may not have kids. So he might go from having 3 kids to having 6 kids that he needs to be looking after. So, and look, there's often nothing you can do about that. But these are real, you're quite right, Shannon. I think these are harsh realities that do need to be discussed. And I think, yeah, Elmarie, I mean, the one thing we haven't touched on really is around divorce, and possibly because it's a tough thing to talk about.
Yeah, that was actually my next on my list was divorced and widowhood.
Go for it.
Yeah, divorce is always difficult, but I think that is why when you you kind of divorce, you know, when a couple is happy, you're not going to discuss divorce. But you kind of need to do the planning from the beginning of their lives when they're together, not as if they would get divorced, but go back to that where you start splitting assets like between couples, and you do it from the fact that it'll be better off for them in retirement and better off from a tax point of view, and in the back of your mind, you know, kind of if a divorce, you know, would come into play, because it's a very negative thing to address if there's no marital problems. You know what I mean? But obviously, if there is, then that's also so sensitive. I mean, you know, if you know a couple's got any problems, how do you sit down with them if they're already at that point where they really don't like each other? You know, it is really, really difficult. So I think that's where the planning comes in way ahead of time. And if you have the typical scenario where the husband is earning all the money and the other one is not, obviously depending on the marriage regime. But I've also seen people that's been married with like an accrual, and for some reason the wife still gets less, you know, although they should be getting more. So yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, it's not an easy one. But I think planning and always making sure that the other person is also financially independent, you know, and has the assets in their name is a way of actually addressing that from an earlier point on.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with a couple at the moment who've been married 42 years. She wants a divorce. And he just put his head in the sand. And so, like, as an advisor, he has never spoken to me about it. He's never mentioned it. She's been talking to me about it for 8 months. He knows I know, but I haven't discussed that I know, because he's a bit of a strange cat. So, so what I'm trying to do is saying, like, we can be here for the both of you. And I've said to her, like, because then the attorneys want info, and I said, look, I can't give them that info. He has to give them that info, you know, and it's really difficult as a planner sometimes, and you've got to be very careful about picking a side, because if you pick a side very often, you could lose both clients. And look, life isn't just about retaining clients. It's actually about helping them. If you work well with them and you know that you can work well with them moving forward, you know, if you can be impartial and you can be completely objective, I think it's important to know when you can, and if you can't do that, then you've got to acknowledge that, I think. But it's really easy because you've got to kind of manage both parties. There's a lot of emotion involved.
Yeah, very much.
Need to make sure that she is taken care of. And again, that she doesn't sell herself too short, because it's also like, okay, just tell me how much I need and then I'll go for that. And I'm saying, well, actually, that's not really the way it should be, because there's a lot of money here that you both built up through your lives together. You know, so it's really tricky as how do you work without a financial plan, and we don't get any training on that. You know, it's the same, like no one coaches us when we start off on how to deal when the client commits suicide. I had that 4 years in, you know. So there's a lot that I think we can learn from each other. Tom, you got your hand up.
Yeah, just Shannon, that is a very valid point that you brought up. You know, the divorce is, I mean, from my standpoint in my age group, I'm seeing a lot of people almost going through that, unfortunately. 3 of the ones that I have been witness to have actually been decisions made on the female side. And what I think is quite interesting is, again, it almost goes back to where you do have the planning and both parties involved, and there is like a little bit of financial independence retained on the female side. And I think that that's pretty much what today is all about. You know, it is such a good thing that we are able to focus on that a little bit more and allow females to have that independence and know that if that does happen for whatever reason, they're going to be okay. And it goes both ways, but a lot of the time in the industry, it is focused on, you know, the male side. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation. It's an interesting topic to consider a little bit more. But as Elmarie says, it is a difficult thing to plan for or discuss or bring up when the going's good or not good. But it's something that we can almost look at and I suppose kind of analyze in the background while we're doing the planning, without necessarily bringing it up as a divorce topic per se.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Carlos, you got your hand up.
Thanks, Dirk. Yeah, I'd just like to relay a example that I had of how creative, especially on the husband side, because in this specific case, I had a friend reach out to me. Obviously couldn't afford an attorney, but because of the good relations with in the NGO space, there was quite a prominent woman empowerment NGO that asked their attorney that normally helped them to help her. And so obviously that meant he was just going to facilitate the divorce and the legal aspect. However, he wanted nothing to do with, the financial planning and how the assets get split. And they were married out of community with accrual. And the husband, the ex-husband, or soon-to-be ex-husband, was a forensic accountant as well. So incredibly intelligent on how, because he put a proposal forth, and in that proposal, if you just looked at the numbers face value, it would seem fair. But the more I studied it, I realized his whole strategy was trying to maintain all the cash flow, like all the investments and all of that, give her the inferior property amongst all the properties, which would then trigger transfer costs and all of that, which he didn't have cash flow for. And then also layer in tax beforehand when it was supposed to be taxed only in her hands. Instead, he calculated that tax beforehand and all of that there. And so at face value, it would have seemed fair. But as you dug and you just looked at the relating laws and all of that, you just realized that, she would have just been in a worse off position, lesser monies, and sitting with a property she couldn't sell or would have to spend money to maintain to get it to the level for her to live in. Yeah. So I just thought I'd highlight that as well, that it can look fair on paper, but one has to really just be diligent in analyzing all of that to actually make sure, and obviously we're a little bit more trained and we can identify those type of things. I just thought I'd add that.
No, Carlos, I think it's really, really valuable, because often, even from an advisor viewpoint, obviously advisors will just look at the numbers and they'll say, okay, well, that looks okay, and look, that's how I'm going to earn my money, so let's go ahead and do that. And I think this just really highlights how the difference between doing our job really properly, like really, really caringly, and doing an okay job. The consequences are completely polar opposites, and that's why, anyone we take on as a client, we've got to treat everybody as if they are your biggest client or your most important client, or rather don't deal with them. Because this stuff happens, it happens. And it could make you feel bad about yourself, hopefully, if you haven't done a proper job, but it could have huge legal ramifications as well. If you've led someone to believe that their situation's okay and it's actually not. Elmarie, one more thing. Wow, I said to Elmarie, if you can stay on for 20 minutes or half an hour, it'd be great. But I really appreciate this. But one more thing is that I think we've also encountered, and again, we're encountering at the moment. Example is we got a woman whose husband passed away a few years back. Kids in the Middle East, son in London, Cape Town. One's getting married. We kind of know the families through, because we're from the Eastern Cape. This guy was very successful before he passed. She has a bit of a spending issue, and we know this, like the business partners have said, this is an issue, and there's all this, and there's a trust And I can see what he did before. He removed as a beneficiary from the trust, and in his will, he wants the kids all added as trustees and all these things. And we've come in now where a lot of the stuff is emotional already. So the job is, we can't really advise on that. It's got to take its course. But then moving forward, and the son in the UK was investing money in his equities. I think he's realised that this is too big a thing for him to deal on his own. So now we're involved, good relationships, everything. But I want to talk about widows and children and how they deal with the money. Because in this case, she's, I think, a bit younger than myself. So she's probably about 55, 56. The kids are, one's about to get married, others kind of they all have financial needs. She's like paying for the one girlfriend's car. And so she's helping everyone. But there's no plan at the moment, so we're busy putting that in place. But how do you deal and protect widowed women or even divorced women? How do I word this? Kind of from their kids, because a lot of it is not that they're greedy, but there's a misunderstanding, or maybe they are just greedy. You know, they've got a greedy spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend,
Yeah.
or how have you dealt with situations like that, which are obviously highly emotional, especially when a divorce or a death has been fairly recent? Yeah.
I've actually got it in red in front of my notes. Also important to touch on the relationship they have with their children, because my heading was divorced and widowed. Because what I find is, there's so many different dynamics, because the one thing I also find that you have these widows, and because they're always the carers, they might have adult children that's dependent on them. Okay, so that you also get. So you have maybe these kids that are greedy, maybe they want, but then you have these other children who maybe have a drug habit or alcoholism or whatever it is. And these people are in their 70s and 80s and they must still work, and they take every cent they've got to give to those children. That is very difficult. I mean, I have so many times sat with these widows and talked to them about their children, and they just go, Elmarie, what would you do if it was your child? And no mom is going to leave their child in the gutter when they got drunk or whatever. You know, so it's such a difficult one. And can we change those relationships? No, we can't. The only thing that we can do is kind of set things up that widow or divorcee or divorced person or whatever is protected against themselves. I think, you know, to put things, you know, I mean, if she's in that case where she just gives away all her money, shouldn't it go into an annuity? Even if it doesn't make sense from other point of financial planning, but maybe, you know, put it in an RA and buy an annuity that she has a monthly income. Or, you know, you can have to assess every situation on their own. But that is why the relationships and actually understanding exactly what that mother does for each of her children is actually very important. I think, because we can't change the relationships. You have to kind of look at what you can't change. And then you have to kind of look at, okay, what do I need to, how can I help her to protect herself against herself? You know, that's really what I think. And you know, you have these differences. You've got people that's widowed and their kids are in South Africa. Then you've got people that's widowed and the kids are out of South Africa. Then they have widowed kids in South Africa, but they need to support their kids. Or there's grandchildren. You know, how many times have you seen that there's a divorce from the kids are divorced, there's not enough money for the grandchildren for all their school needs. So they jump in and they do that as well. So, you know, it's complicated. So, but what I'm just saying is you're going to have to go and look at that client, that she's your client, and you're going to see how do you protect her and how do you get her to always have enough money.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, in the case, we've actually got a few cases along all of that at the moment. Divorce, death, and with kids all over the world, because they're different tax rules in different jurisdictions. Yes. And the unintended consequences with the trust with kids in Australia or New Zealand. It's all, so it is really complicated. I just find, as you say, focus on who is the client, and it's the widow or the divorcee, and build that plan around them. So, well, look, you can do this, but then it means you can't have this or you can't have that. We got a case at the moment where it's a second marriage, his kids, her kids, and whatever, and they're helping them all, and they're grown kids. Like the kids are married and got kids, and they're paying medical aids and not charging them rent for an apartment or whatever. And we're saying, like, well, if you carry down this road in 7 years' time, you have to go live with it. You know, but if you start doing this, and you can't do it all at once, but if you start doing this, we can then buy you another 12 years or whatever. So and I think that's where a lot of it is just the numbers, but a lot of it is also that building that trust so that you can actually be as honest with clients as you need to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so I think that I've got one or two other little things here, which I just thought is important for single people, and it is mostly females. I mean, I've got like one single male client, the rest is all females. I also find that one thing that's really important is, and we can't do much about it, but we can help in the sense of, I find that a lot of clients are lonely. You know, they might be living in their house still that the husband lived in, or maybe they've always been their own. And I always encourage people to be part of a community. So, because I mean, being lonely, what does it help? You've got all the money, you're so desperately lonely, you know. And that's one area I also always feel so, sad for people. And I always encourage people, and I've even gone with them, to go into retirement villages or go in, things like that. And I've just found people that have done that often turn around and say, Elmarie, I wish I did it earlier. Why did I stay so long in that house on my own, And it's not our job to do that necessarily, but at the end of the day, I think that's it's also an area that a person can encourage and assist and help for those people to live a better life or not. I can't stand it when you have these people that's so lonely.
But I mean, you also find often that one party wants to do that, the other one doesn't. And when one passes away, they fly. I've got a case now where clients have a bit of a mini stroke, and they were living in his house because he was never married, but her husband, she was a widow. And the minute there's an excuse, and she's been wanting to move for a while, he doesn't. But now that he's had the stroke, we're in. She's in already, yes. And apart from that emotional side, there are also really big financial issues around it. Years ago we kind of did a study on all the retirement villages in the Eastern Cape, just because they've all got different rules. They've all got you can buy or you can rent, or you get so much back when you die or whatever. These are what the levies are. And it's important to kind of know what that is in your area. And we kind of make contact with people like, we've got the Eco Foundation here. And I know the people, and we've had where a client's eventually gone in and she said, can you come with me to sign the papers? And I said, sure, but don't you want your son to come? She says, no, I want you to come. And that was like, then I realized, wow, actually, it's like, she's taken this decision with me, actually not even with the family, but the huge financial consequences. I'm seeing a couple just now who didn't take the advice and bought into a retirement village instead of just renting, and now the kids are all subsidizing them, and so it's all this discussion, and it's they 70s, so it's like they've got some money to invest. If we leave it in cash, it takes the plan to 94. We invested inflation plus 4, it takes the plan to 108. So it's a significant difference. I don't expect them to live to 108, but we know what that means is that there's a lot more fat in the plan. And also that money is actually, the way I also view it, is it's the kids' inheritance. Now we leave it in cash, it's going to be fine. And look, it's not even R1 million, so it's not, but we work with some of the kids in that. But the fact is, it is the kids' inheritance. So if they live another 10, 12 years and we are able to get a better return on it, the kids are putting money in any case. My plan was, don't buy, rent, and use your own money to live a great life, and your kids don't need to subsidize you, because now the kids it's now affecting their planning.
Absolutely. Yeah,
you know.
no, very
So
important.
it's kind of not fair, and the folks are a little bit selfish. But you know, with the older ones, you can't, and they just did this stuff without.
Yeah.
Even
So
though I
that, yeah,
told
it's a
them to
lot
do
of
the opposite.
things that comes into play there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have to run now.
Elmarie, thank you so much. We all do appreciate you coming on, and yeah, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Anybody from the floor wants to just any other questions or anything else? I hope there was a bit of insight somewhere.
Plenty, really plenty. Thank you so
But
much.
it was a great,
Thanks,
it was a great,
Elmarie.
it's a great discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elmarie. It was
But
good.
I've got a 10 o'clock, so I quickly have to run.
All right.
Okay.
Keep well.
Thank you
Cheers.
very
Bye-bye.
much. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys. Yeah. Anyone have anything else to discuss? Elmarie's really, she's a real tough cookie and extremely passionate about lifestyle planning, as you can see. Yeah, as I said, I've known her for quite a while, but never really had a proper discussion. And it just shows you that when you actually do take a bit of time to get to know someone, we discover parts of them that we didn't know. Anyone else have anything that they'd like to add? Otherwise, I think we can call it a day.
Yeah.
All right. Yes.
Sorry, Dirk, if I may. Yeah.
Sure.
I think just brings back to me the power of lifestyle planning, because where else do you have this level of discussions? You know, normally the general mill of financial planning, it's normally the front end things, making sure the numbers are right. Yeah. So yeah, just want to express appreciation. And yeah, I think I've just been encouraged again to understand the importance of particularly lifestyle planning, because it factors in all of these nitty-gritties that often get overlooked and result in people thinking they're on the right track and just falling into disaster because of the lack of it.
Yeah, Carlos, and it's encouraging clients to have the discussions that they don't really want to have or that they don't expect, because I think often clients come to us and they've had other relationships with financial advisors, but it's all been really around the numbers and about being tax efficient. And while those things are really important, they are close to useless if we don't understand that client's own personal situation, because very often we can avoid a future disaster by helping them make certain decisions today. So, and again, this is where people put our industry down, put advisors down. I can tell you 95% of people that I've met who do what we do really do care. They have different levels of skill, either around the numbers or around the personal side of this. And we've all got to just keep getting better at the parts that we're not, But we add massive value to our clients' lives. And when you do get the people who are shooting us down, whether it's what we do or how we earn our money or whatever, let me tell you, we add massive value. So we've got to keep on doing our job and doing our job as well as we can, because I think, as we touched on, you can do a very average job, and the average job for us is probably better than most advice people are getting. But if we do our job well, we can really help people out. So yeah, thanks, Carlos. Anyone else? Cindy?
Oh, something
Okay, guys.
completely off topic.
No.
Have you secured any dates for that Errol thing? That seminar?
Yeah, so I'm away for the next couple of weeks. So I was looking at second half of July.
Okay.
Is that?
And is there another one that we're gonna do, the one that Russell did? Or
I think this is the one that Russell did. So he's got this one, and then he's also got one on trusts, which would be really good.
okay.
Okay. So look, I mean, I've known Errol for 30 years. So what he
Yeah.
said is it's not a massive discount, but it's nice. And I think if we do it with this class, it is nice because we all kind of know each other, online know each other, and it'll bring up maybe further issues that we can discuss in this
Yeah.
forum as well. So I think I've got about 50 positives, which is fantastic. So
Okay.
I think we'll easily fill up a session just from people in this group. Errol did message me early in the week, and I told him I was going away. But maybe what I should do before I leave is just put out some dates. It's two sessions. I think it's 2 4-hour sessions, which is quite heavy. But again, the stuff is by nature, I think
It's
it is quite
relevant,
heavy.
it's CPD, it's yeah, I mean, it all in all, it doesn't really matter. But
Yeah, and because Errol he's worked with financial planners, but he's more on the other side. He takes a very different perspective. It's like really, I've known him, it's like really robust and
yeah,
kind of from a technical side, which is really good for us to be exposed to. So yeah. Okay, so what I'll chat to maybe just put out some dates, but I think they'll be a week apart, kind of like as we run these sessions. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, you
Okay,
just put
guys.
a reminder out there as to what it's about. Sorry, there's so much that happens in the group I forget, and I'm old. Memory's not so good either.
No, Shannon, you got to get off all those groups, eh? Put them on mute. I'm trying to do it. It's not easy. Right, now I will. Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of the week, and yeah, we'll see you online.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Derek.
Thanks,
Bye-bye,
guys.
everybody.
Thanks for the session.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.